So, USC fans, how does 8-4 sound?
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Culkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC your first listen every day. Whether you're going to watch this show on YouTube or wherever you're going to download your podcast, it's free. I appreciate your support. Show your appreciation. If you're watching on YouTube, click that red subscribe button. Click that thumbs up button. And also, do not forget that bell notification. I don't want you to miss an episode Monday through Friday. This episode is brought to you by the Game Time Company. Game Time app. Create an account and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. We were the team sitting in the conference championship last year and beat everybody other than Utah. Tonight, they were a deeper football team. I thought tonight they played better on the lines of scrimmage than we did. We threw some good shots in there, but there are still some depth issues that showed up in there. They are probably a deeper roster than us right now, but also a much healthier roster than we are right now. End quote. Those were some of Lincoln Riley's words following USC's 36-27 loss on the road to the Oregon Ducks. That's what Coach Riley had to say comparing last year's team to this year's team. He also said right after he took the USC job in 2022, he took it at the end of 2021, but you get the point, that his 2022 roster would be his least talented roster while he was the Trojans head coach. So in 2022, they went 11-3. In 2023, this team is fighting and scratching to get to 8 wins. Like I said, 11 wins last year. And then after they went to the Cotton Bowl, and when we watched them all collapse together, Lincoln said he was determined to live up to his promise, and he went right back to the transfer portal to get more players, better players than he had in 2022. Those are his words. The bottom line, while it's true that injuries are a part of the game, and they have hit the Trojan secondary hard towards the tail end of the season this year, it's not USC's problems on defense weren't necessarily about the numbers as much as it was about the players they had and the scheme they were asking the players to run. So I don't necessarily agree that injuries should have been at the forefront of where Lincoln Riley's comparing this year's team to last year's team. On that note, speaking of developing talent within the program, he also said this after the game. It's a climb. There's a crazy emphasis on building it right now, but you don't turn all that over coming from where this thing was, alluding to 4-8, to all of a sudden being the most elite team on the offensive and defensive line. It's not going to happen that fast. I think we've improved in a lot of areas. We've done a lot of great things in the 2 years we've been here. But obviously, there's an area that of course has to continue to improve. That a lot of times in championship level football, that's the separating factor. We know that. There's been a heavy emphasis on it. That's why we've won the amount of games that we've won in the 2 years that we've been here. But of course, does that need to get better? Hell yeah. Is it going to get better? Hell yeah. End quote. So Coach Riley keeps saying that the talent has to get better in the trenches. We agree. The talent always should be upgrading on a yearly basis on both offensive and defensive lines. But that's across the board for any program, not just USC. Keeping that in mind, USC also has a bunch of guys. They brought in a pretty good freshman offensive line group in 2023. I guess we're going to see if they're going to lean on that class, their homegrown stuff, or are they going to go back to the transfer portal again this offseason to kind of fill in some holes, a couple of Band-Aids, so to speak. Here's what I would say. If they do go buy a couple of Band-Aids, and yes, I did say buy, because that's how they use the transfer portal. Let's not try and reinvent the wheel, okay? If someone's strength is on one side, let's leave them there. Don't look for any bad habits to try and break. I'm talking specifically about the offensive line right now. Now, even before Alex Grinch was released last week, most were anticipating Oregon's offense having an offensive explosion all over USC. And why not? Everybody's been exploding all over USC's defense this year. So I think we should probably give Coach Sean Nua and Coach Brian Odom a little bit of credit. In less than a week, they devised a plan, and they held that number one scoring offense in the country to 36 points. Let's give a little bit of credit there. Coach Riley said after the game, I thought the staff did a good job. Guys played hard defensively. We got some key stops there. The first two long ones that get out. I mean, again, you got guys playing in there that are probably about 70% right now. And that's just kind of what you had. And so I thought the coaches did a good job of rallying the guys. Guys fought all night. It's admittedly not the easiest of situations, but I wouldn't have changed anything about how our guys handled it, end quote. Here's what I would say to that. 70% healthy had about 5% to do with how those first two Oregon scoring drives unfolded. And I probably have at least two more examples that I could bring up. However, I won't. But we both watched Oregon's first two touchdown drives. That had nothing to do with health. I will say what I did like is what I saw up front. Or maybe the better way to say is what I didn't see up front from the defensive line and the linebackers. And that was just a bunch of guys shifting right before the snap. I loved that. I think it made a difference. I mean, they held Oregon's running game to 140 yards. They were averaging 200 per game. USC's front line didn't get any defensive pressure. They didn't sack the quarterback. However, they held them to 36 points, 11 points below their seasonal average. With that said, there's still a bunch of fundamental issues like tackling and finding the ball in coverage. But that's going to be the new defensive coordinator's responsibility, whomever that's going to be. So no, Oregon fan, it wasn't due to your own team's brain farts on penalties. I've been reading some of the comments. Oh, Oregon would have blown out USC if Oregon hadn't had committed all those penalties. Well, the penalties happened because your team was feeling the pressure, and they didn't know how to handle that pressure. That's okay. I recognize that because I've been dealing with that with USC. So shut your mouth, take the win, be gracious in winning. And let me just give you kind of an example how USC helped you along the way. Remember that 4th and 1 stop that USC's defense had? Yeah, me too. You probably also remember USC's defender lining up in the neutral zone and keeping that drive alive. So take the win. I also could just as easily say that if two of those fumbles that Bo Nix had or the Oregon offense had bounces to USC instead of right back to Oregon, USC might have scored more points. They would have shorter fields to drive, right? See how it works? Here's what Lincoln Riley said about USC not playing a clean game against Oregon and how that attributed to them not having an opportunity to pull off the upset. We've had our ups and downs. I mean, obviously we made a change defensively because that wasn't headed where we need it to head. You can point to all sides. we kind of put pressure on each other, and we haven't been able to surge too often together. Sometimes it's a bounce of the ball, sometimes it's a call, sometimes it's officiating, sometimes it's a player error, sometimes it's a coaching error. It's just been, I don't know that I can point to one thing and say that's been that. That's what makes it so tough, because the flip side of it is there is a lot of good to put yourself in a position to beat a good team like Utah, to put yourself in a position to beat a really good team like Washington, or a good team like tonight, referring to Oregon. You have to do a lot of good things to have a good chance to win those games too. We have, and that's the tough part to swallow, is we haven't gotten over the hump. That's obviously what you're defined on, and we haven't done a good enough job. So you hear Lincoln Riley give a lot of words. The question was why? And I'm sure I heard an answer I'm just not sure I even heard an answer as to why. But I did hear a bunch of, obfuscation, officiating. Player didn't do this. Ball didn't bounce our way. Coaching error, whatever. So I guess he said why, but here's the answer. Instead of saying all this stuff about it could have been this, it could have been that, simplify it. We needed to be better on defense, period. End of story. But it wasn't all on the defense. As Coach Riley, I could have helped more on the offensive side of the ball. I could have helped more with play calling and making a change to my coaching staff early in the season. That's how you answer that question. He finished off by saying, we are continuing to address some of the areas in the program and within the roster that we've got to get better. We realize that. It's kind of been the theme the last several weeks, is that we're not that far off. I mean, we're not, and we got work to do, but that's kind of the big picture right now. We got a big game coming up here against UCLA, and we need to be ready to go, end quote. This is what I will say to that. You better have the team ready, Coach Riley, because 7-5 ain't good enough, especially after you go 11-3 in year one. Trojan fans, stop stressing out trying to get tickets. Download the Game Time app. You got one more home game, UCLA, and then basketball season starts. So with killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for all the fun you're going to have. I know there's still some Trojan fans left on the bandwagon. Game Time, they've got some deals for you on tickets right up to the day of the event. If you're thinking about going to the UCLA game, go check out Game Time. You're going to get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and a whole lot more. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always find the best price. And if you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will even credit you 110% of the difference. That's why they're the fastest growing ticket app in the country for a reason. You're going to get images of your seats before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. And you're going to buy your tickets in a matter of seconds. 2 taps and you're done. And they're going to send the tickets right to your phone. You don't have to go searching through your email. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. The college football season is here, and it's almost over. And this season, Locked On is kicking up our coverage. Each Friday, Locked On will go live from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on every Locked On College YouTube channel. Locked On College Football Live is going to cover the college football playoff implications, the conference rivalry games, and they're going to go in-depth like only Locked On can, including insight and analysis from our stable of Locked On College hosts covering their team every day. Find Locked On College Football Live every Friday from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on any Locked On College YouTube channel. You're not going to want to miss it. Beat the Bruins. I mean, that is literally all that's left for this squad this year, is to try and get to 8-4. And in order to get that 8th win, they got to beat UCLA. Is that good? Is that win going to salvage the season? Of course not. Not even close. What beating UCLA does do is it stops that burning, stinging sensation that you're feeling right now. Losing 4 out of 5 games, which USC has done down the stretch. I mean, that burns. It chafes. It itches. However you want to describe that irritation, it's annoying. It should not have happened. And it's only going to feel worse if USC somehow loses that game to UCLA this Saturday. By the way, if you haven't heard, kickoff 12:30 p.m. at the Coliseum. Be there. The last chance to see USC this year. Unless you're going to go to a bowl game. You know, you had that devastating loss in South Bend. You had the close loss at home to Utah. You had that eye-opening 1-point win on the road at Cal, which got followed up by USC giving up 52 points at home to Washington. And then you had the closer than anticipated loss to Oregon. All of that combined, the cumulative effect, what is it? What does it leave Trojan fans with? One desire. One thing left to do. Beat the Bruins. Yeah. Following USC's, and they fought really hard. I mean, they showed a lot of pride. They had that fight on spirit, and that's what we wanted. That's what I think everybody needed to see from this team when they went up to Oregon. They gave that. This is what Coach Riley said after the game. We have one more shot in the Coliseum. We've got one more chance to play UCLA, and that's a big rivalry for us. I think from the locker room, these guys have gone through a lot this year. They have hung in there, and they've kept swinging. There's a lot of unity in this locker room, and I think they very much appreciate that one last chance to play the game together, and that's what you do. It's a first game. It's a first game that we played here at USC where we're out of a championship race. You don't intend on playing any more like this, but games like this show the character of a program. So that's what we get a chance to go put on display, end quote. There's quite a few things that we can criticize and critique USC's team about in 2023. However, I really want to make sure that effort and character are not on that list. That's the one thing you cannot take away from this team. A lot of character. They gave the effort. We just didn't get the results that everybody wanted, including them. And on that note, I want to make sure everybody takes a moment to recognize what I've observed, and I'm sure you have, but we don't talk about it. And this part of the culture that Lincoln Riley has changed at USC, this gets overlooked. However, hasn't it been nice for these last couple of years not having any off-the-field incidents? So let's give credit to Lincoln Riley and his coaching staff. They've done a fantastic job in that regard. Now, both teams, USC and UCLA, they're having disappointing seasons this year. For USC fans, because I could not care any less about UCLA fans. That's maybe the one thing that makes this season a little bit more bearable for USC fans is UCLA is suffering more. That was me knocking on wood. So for USC fans, it's been about the defense and an inconsistent offense, as well as a few other things. For UCLA, for Chip Kelly, their offensive guru, they struggle to score. And they just lost at home to Arizona State. Yeah. For those of you who are listening instead of watching on YouTube, I got a big smile. Let me say it again. UCLA just lost at home to Arizona State. So it's really weird. How ironic is it that Chip Kelly, offensive guru who has been credited with changing the way the college game is played, his teams struggle to play offense, but they've got a really good defense this year. The world really is a crazy place where you're talking about UCLA's defense and USC trying to find one under a rock. Once USC lost to Notre Dame, everybody moved their attention to the Utah game. Okay, well, we know what happened there. Once USC lost to Utah, everyone turned their attention against Washington. We know what happened there. And then once USC lost to Oregon, their fourth loss, all to ranked opponents, and the game, everybody circled. This is all USC fans have to look forward to now. Beating a 6-4 UCLA team. I need to remind everybody, this will more than likely be Caleb Williams' last game at the Coliseum dressed up as a Trojan. Are you going to be there? I hope so. It's going to be senior day. Show your support. 12:30 kickoff. Can't say it again. Can't say it enough. I just want to remind everybody, in 2021, this is why USC, both of these teams are coming in kind of with a little bit of stank on them. You know what I mean? In 2021, neither team was having a good season. UCLA was having a better season than USC. Remember, everybody was coming to the Coliseum and kind of taking USC's lunch money. That was the game where Dorian Thompson-Robinson was signing autographs after scoring touchdowns. Yeah. USC got a little bit of revenge last year at the Rose Bowl when they beat UCLA. I need Corey Foreman for this game. We haven't seen him all year. He's redshirting. What I really want to see, this is what I really want to see. I want to see a 27-0 shutout. I would take a 50-0 shutout. That will make 8-4 feel like that win at the end of that 6-6 season that Pete Carroll had. And the reason why I bring that up, why I would take a 27-0 victory, is because in 2001, you could see that team was close with Pete Carroll. Every week, they might not have won, but each week they were close. They were losing games by less than a touchdown. USC is doing the same thing in 2023, but it looks different. You don't see any improvement week to week. You did see improvement back in 2001. Lincoln Riley keeps telling us that they're close, that they're going to get over the hump, that they're going to surge together. We don't want to talk about it anymore. Go prove it. We spend a lot of time talking together, you and I. We get fired up together on wins and losses, who starts and who sits. I'm thankful for the connection that we have. And today, I want to chat about something and be a little bit more personal. I just learned that you can get a 1-year supply of ED medications. Man, you know what ED stands for. You realize what that means? Bring on extended travel, bring on the next natural disaster, or bring on the next supply chain issue. You are covered. My friend, you don't have to worry about whether or not you have your refill for Cialis, for Viagra, or Revasio. Those prescriptions can be filled on a yearly basis. And you can do that with your friends at Jace Medical. Go online right now at jacemedical.com and you can receive your 12-month supply on your daily medication. Remember, use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout and you're going to receive a discount as well. If you or someone you love would get a peace of mind by having a year's supply of your daily medications, go to jacemedical.com to see if it's offered for you. And remember to use promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase. Got a question. And you know what when I ask a question, I want feedback. Hit me up in the comment section. We're going to talk about that later in the week. Be a close, read some viewer comments. We're going to talk about UCLA this week. So after USC went 11-3 in 2022, here's my question. Does that make 2023 a wasted season? Or is it a season of growth? I've said it often. You don't learn by doing things correctly. You learn by making mistakes. I think the answer to my question is yes. 2023 is a wasted season. However, it can be a season of growth. So it's both, especially if Coach Riley uses this offseason to explore where he needs to grow as a coach. Look, Caleb Williams could surprise everyone and say he's coming back in 2024. I'm not holding my breath, but no, rumors been floating around out there. But with so much that was on the line in 2023 and not getting one big win, I went over those games: Notre Dame, Utah, Washington, Oregon. They were close in a couple of them. But with so much on the line, and again, not getting one big win, or even having Caleb Williams follow up his Heisman campaign with something that looked similar to his Heisman campaign, it just kind of feels like all that pomp and circumstance and media hype that led up to this season feels wasted. Last year, Lincoln Riley and this is my words with a finger quote, crappy roster. He didn't want to put any limitations on his team. And USC did not have a crappy roster in 2022. I'm paraphrasing Lincoln, saying that last year would have been his worst roster as Trojans head coach. His second year, with a better roster, they had a worse season. That's where I was going with that. So remember, in 2022, he kept saying, I don't want to put any limitations on this team. You're just going to kind of let the team go where it goes. Whatever happens, happens. This year, he took on a different tone. Heading into the spring, the longer we go, the better we get. That was the team's mantra. Problem is, they didn't get better on either side of the ball. You kind of hope that the offense, what you saw last year, would have maintained that, at least stayed on that line, or slightly, go up a little bit. It's been hard to duplicate those numbers, but they scored a lot of points this year. Don't get me wrong, but it didn't look the same as last year. Something was missing. Maybe it's on the offensive line. Maybe it's Caleb Williams. Maybe it's the play calling. Maybe Lincoln Riley's right. Maybe it's everything. But that comes down to coaching. Bottom line. But they didn't even come close to getting better on the defensive side of the ball. And that's what's the most disturbing part about the whole thing. It's about what could have been. It's about the arrogance and the hubris. It's about not doing what you knew was necessary at the end of last year, at the end of the Cotton Bowl, and not adjusting during the season this year when you saw the offense wasn't doing what it needed to do. So not only did the team's goals get kind of pushed over, knocked down, the domino effect for next season, for the next few seasons, actually, they could have been set back. 2023 was a pivotal year for the program. You're trying to build off of what happened in 2022. You're transitioning to the big conference in 2024. Riley talked about, roster development and recruiting. 8-4, and you're going backwards on defense. I don't know if that's going to help convince too many recruits that you're willing to put an emphasis on that side of the ball. I don't know what you're going to do during the offseason other than say, hey, everybody, look, I went out and I got the best defensive coordinator money can buy. Hopefully that, get some eyes looking back. It kind of feels like 2024 will be year one without Caleb. You take into consideration the lack of playing time for some of the guys on the roster that's going to cause them to cause an exodus off the roster into the transfer portal. So again, 8-4. If you get to 8-4, that feels like a setback. And with all the with USC's recruiting kind of running in quicksand right now, that means you're going to have to rely more on imports from the transfer portal. That formula right now is kind of still being determined if it's going to work. And you got to do that while you're preparing for LSU in game one and the big conference next year. So in some regards, 2023 ended up being a wasted season. You weren't able to build on what you started last year. And you're transitioning to a new conference, and you feel like you're still starting over. I'm not sure that was the part of the plan in year two. We're going to talk more about this team this year. We're going to talk more about the UCLA game coming up on Saturday, and we might even talk just a little bit more about this last game against Oregon. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. We're going to focus on what the defense can do against UCLA to stop their running game. So until that next episode of Locked On USC, everyone, you know what to do. And when you're done making Locked On USC your first listen every day, you're going to head on over to wearesc.com and you're going to check out all that cool written content that we have for you.